Hello everybody and welcome back. Welcome back as we talk a little bit more about autism and some of the signs and symptoms and whatever else we can think of to educate people, help people. This channel is both for people that have autism, are on the spectrum, and for people that have family members or friends, colleagues, coworkers, something along those lines, or just know people that have autism. As I've mentioned in almost every single video, autism is the fastest growing learning and developmental disability in the United States, and it is the least funded by a wide margin. So there's not a lot of knowledge out there. People don't really understand it that well. So if you're curious about how maybe you could help with some of the research and things along those lines, just check down below this video. We're going to put some links into some of the more common charities and research organizations, because almost everything that is dealing with autism right now is privately funded. Again, it is the least funded of all the learning and developmental disabilities. Also, once they turn 18, almost all funding programs and assistance and aid vanishes. So today, I want to talk about some of the more common signs and difficulties of autism. We want to talk within social interactions, because that's kind of how it started. In 1908, when autism was first used as a word, it was used to describe schizophrenics that preferred to be alone. And then come later on, the 1940s, when it was starting to get a little bit understood, the word autism was still used in mostly for people that preferred to be alone. Now, as we've learned more about autism, we've discovered that that's actually kind of false. Autistics do not prefer to be alone. They just have so many difficulties with social interactions that oftentimes it becomes easier to be alone, for a number of different reasons. So remember, this is not an all-inclusive list, because there are no two autistic people that are the same, and the ASD spectrum is huge. So I'm just going to talk about a few of the more common issues that come up for autistics. The first one, and one that can impact a little bit, especially in adult life, is difficulty with eye contact, difficulty making eye contact, a lot of difficulty maintaining eye contact. And it's something that up to a point can be I guess hidden in a way, but the thing that most people don't understand with autism is the neurobiological disorder. It's the brain works differently, it fires differently, it processes things differently, and it just, again, it works differently. So, to most people, they look at something and say, well, if it's uncomfortable, just do it anyway. To the autistic, some things they know they need to do, and yet they just flat out cannot do it. There is just no way. Trying to maintain and hold eye contact, for some people, it's just not going to happen. They can't. They flat out can't. They can't force themselves. They just can't do it. Some can and learn to eventually, and others just learn ways to make it easier, to play it off. That's what we call masking, and I'm going to talk a little bit about masking later on in this video. Another one that is very difficult for autistics is they have extreme difficulty with social cues, facial expressions, and body language. In fact, they have this little online test that you can do where they just show eyes. They just show about this part of the face, and they ask you to identify what emotion that person is feeling. Happy, angry, confused, bewildered, sad, so on and so forth. And some autistics will score a flat 0 on that, whereas most people are going to score in the 80s or 90s, because they're used to the body language, the social cues, things along those lines, whereas the autistics, they just can't. And along with that, they have a deep problem with, some have a deep problem with empathy as well. They have difficulty understanding what somebody is feeling. And that can stem from a lot of different things, just maybe how their brain works. Also, some of them are just so logical and step by step. A great example actually is my own experience over 20 years ago, September 11th, 2001. A friend of mine, as we're talking about it, the day as it's going on, a friend of mine is telling me that that they had that their uncle works at the Pentagon, which had a plane crash into it, and later on, a couple days later, they told me they were kind of mad because I, didn't ask any further questions. But it came out almost exactly as you would read about autistic mindset, because as they were saying that, oh yeah, my uncle works at the Pentagon. I actually can still clearly remember my thought processes as they were speaking. I thought, okay, well, they're calm, they're matter of fact. Obviously, their uncle is fine. Like it was just to me, it was just obvious, and their uncle was fine. But to me, it was just obvious, and that's an autistic thing. Most people will understand that you should ask more about, are they okay and stuff like that. But autistics, they miss those social cues. They miss those small things. They also have a lot of trouble with conversations, not just face to face, but also even on telephone, because they can't quite tell when it's their turn to talk and when it's not. So you end up with a lot of awkward silences. You end up with a lot of running over somebody else as they speak, because again, they can't pick up on these cues. Also, a lot of people say things that they don't mean or ask questions that they don't want the answers to, and autistics have a lot of trouble with that, a lot of trouble, because there's a very, very literal thinking brain that goes along with it, and they have trouble with those. They don't deal with subtlety very well. They don't deal with doublespeak. They don't deal with some can do sarcasm. I can do sarcasm fairly well, but some can't, and even then, some jokes, stuff like that, completely go right past the autistic, because they take things so literally. Take things very, 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 very literally. They can also have a tendency to be very pedantic and blunt, which again comes from the literal thinking, and oftentimes a very logical mindset instead of an emotional mindset. And the pedantic comes from the rigidity. A lot of autistics, they deal really, really well with structure, with routine. So they can be very, very pedantic when they hear rules. When they are taught rules and taught something and told this is the way it should be, they become locked into that track, and they have no room to deviate from it based on circumstances or anything like that. That's why a lot of autistics have difficulty with management, especially when they first go into it. Because people management is all about circumstances and bending the rules or coloring the rules based on circumstances. Even just things like timeliness. Expecting employees to come to work on time. Sometimes people are late, and there are circumstances. An autistic person will have a lot of difficulty with that. Their mind is, this is the rule, this is what we're supposed to punish. Everybody is equal, and that's what they'll do, and it causes a lot of difficulty. Some autistics also have a lot of difficulty with social interactions, because they tend to notice odd details, little details, patterns, things along those lines, and then when they bring them up, they get laughed at, basically, because it's just so odd. It's so odd. It's so different. And if it's not something that they've been through in the past and familiar with in the past, then they don't know exactly what to say, what to do, and that comes from and that kind of leads into masking. So what is masking? So masking is something that autistics learn to do to basically mimic what is considered societal norms when it comes to behavior. Everybody does it differently. Some people don't do it at all. Some people can't. But masking is the reason why the older people get, autism can, in some cases, appear to smooth out, can appear to diminish. Because again, it's not degenerative. You don't get worse. You don't get more autistic as time goes by. But sometimes it appears that people might get less autistic as time goes by. They don't. They absolutely don't. What they get is they get better and better and better at hiding it. They get better at hiding it. They get better at faking things. So they learn to blend with normal society. Not all of them can. It's generally, on the Asperger's level, the milder cases, the higher functioning cases, where they're able to learn how to do this. And some of this stuff, our modern society has actually helped with a lot of it. A lot of autistics have deep problems with face-to-face communication. And again, it's not that they don't want to, it's the fact that throughout most of their lives, it was actually very traumatic, especially as a child. You get laughed at, you get pushed away, made fun of when you try and talk to people. You just stop talking to people, you start avoiding it. And same thing with phone calls, with talking. They have a lot of trouble with that. So what has society brought along? Text and messaging. That has made a huge impact for many, many, many autistics. Many autistics. Also, some of them have a lot of difficulty with sounds, especially loud sounds. We now have noise-canceling headphones. And noise-canceling headphones, by the way, just look like regular headphones. And sometimes they are. They're attached to their iPod or whatever. So it's also a great way for people not to talk to you when you're out in public. You can muffle all the loud noises and you put on the headphones, and theoretically people will leave you alone. They won't talk to you. And that's certainly a form of masking, almost like a technological masking. But then you have things like, say, the eye contact thing. The eye contact thing. Eye contact is one of those things I have a lot of difficulty with. If I'm scanning around a room and I happen to make eye contact with somebody, I don't even think about it. My eyes are just gone. They just move. And I very rarely, usually when I look at someone, I look around like that. I'll come across to the face, but then my eyes will go under the head and then keep scanning past, or I'll go right across the forehead as fast as I can. So people think I'm making eye contact, but I'm really, really not. And I'm also not holding it for very long. And, luckily I work in a place that's very, very busy, has a lot of people, a lot of things going on. So I'm often able to just kind of stare off into the distance while I'm talking to someone. I usually move my head around. So I'll look like I'm just kind of scanning around. And what I'm actually doing is I'm just holding a conversation, but I'm avoiding eye contact with them by appearing like I'm looking around. Another part of masking is just holding things in. Holding things in, they learn to hold back on some things, such as stimming. Stimming is something that we will talk about in further videos, but you learn to not do it. You learn to hold back on it. Masking also is hiding distress even. Loud noises, super loud noises. Some people have a lot of difficulty with that, and they will do their best to hide it when they are in public. You don't want to have an autistic meltdown in public. You don't want people to think you're weird, so you learn to hide it. The thing about masking is it's very, very exhausting for most autistics. It's very exhausting, which is another reason why they start to prefer to be alone, because they don't have to mask and it's not so mentally and physically draining. So there you go. Those are some of the social interaction difficulties that some autistics can have. Thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys next time. Bye now.